Good morning, everybody. Today we'll be talking on the topic of energy. Now, as you can see from the slide, energy that goes into our body can be divided into four categories: carbohydrates, protein, vitamins, and minerals. And the last one is fats. We will start with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is an energy source. It is also the only source of energy for the brain. Insufficient intake will result in fatigue, lethargy, and lack of concentration. Have any of you ever skipped breakfast and felt really terrible throughout the day? That is because your body does not have enough carbohydrates and it affects your brain. It makes you feel very sleepy and you feel like you don't have energy. There are many types of carbohydrates. The first kind of carbohydrates that I'm going to be talking about is nutritious carbohydrates. Nutritious carbohydrates provide other nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Examples of nutritious carbohydrates are wholemeal bread, wholemeal spaghetti, and brown rice. Now, have you noticed all these good carbohydrates are actually not white in color? Okay, they are unlike your white rice or your white bread. In their original form, they are usually brown or yellowish in color. When you eat nutritious carbohydrates, you're not only just eating in carbohydrates, you're also taking in a lot of good things like the vitamins, minerals, and fiber that makes you healthy. The next kind of carbohydrates I'm going to be talking about is refined carbohydrates. Now, do not be deceived by its name. Refined carbohydrates is actually not as good for you as nutritious carbohydrates. Why? They have little or no nutrition other than carbohydrates. Examples are soft drinks, sweets, white rice, and white bread. All these kind of carbohydrates gives you very fast energy. But sometimes when you have too much energy too fast, you're unable to use up the energy. It will become fats. That's why some of you have a bit more fats than others. It's because of the kind of food that you eat. The next kind of carbohydrates I'm going to be talking about is high-fat carbohydrates. High-fat carbohydrates are very high in fat content. Examples of high-fat carbohydrates are donuts, cakes, chocolates, bubble tea, and certain kind of soft drinks. These kind of carbohydrates are bad for your body and makes you fat easily is because of the high fat content inside. Fat can be found in liquid state or solid state. So sometimes you might be able to find this kind of fats in your bubble tea. Cakes, you can find them in the form of your butter that was used to make the cakes, and chocolates too as well. Donuts are very oily, if some of you have ever tried it before. Now this is why these are called high fat carbohydrate foods. Let's move on to protein now. Protein is essential for growth and muscle repair. Insufficient protein results in muscle loss, depression, anemia, and anxiety. As a primary school student, we are constantly growing taller and stronger. Protein helps us to grow taller and stronger. If we do not have enough protein in our diet, we will start to lose our muscles. When that happens, you can see somebody becoming weaker and weaker, and they will eventually fall sick and have many health-related problems. Let's talk about the different types of proteins that we eat. The first kind would be animal protein. Animal protein, like its name suggests, is meat from animal sources. This kind of protein is generally higher in fat. But the good thing about them is they are complete proteins. Now, what are complete proteins? To make it simple, there are many different kinds, or rather there are many different components that make up protein. Complete proteins means that this kind of animal sources provides all the different kinds of protein that your body needs in order for it to be healthy. The next kind of protein is plant protein. Plant protein has a lot less fat in it. In fact, some of them do not have any fat at all. However, for plant protein, they are considered incomplete proteins. When you take plant protein, you most probably are not taking in all the necessary proteins needed for your body to be as healthy as it can. However, for many vegetarians, they overcome this by taking a variety of vegetables. It is important to mix the kind of vegetables that you eat every day so that you always have enough of the different kind of proteins that come from different vegetables. If you have enough of all these kind of protein, it will be as good as having complete proteins because you're not losing out on anything. Take a look at this graph now. From here you can see some of the different kinds of vegetables that have protein in it. A tomato has about 18% protein in it. A cabbage, 22%. And right at the top, you have broccoli at 45% and spinach at 49%. Have you ever watched those cartoons where they showed Popeye the Sailor Man eating spinach and having really, really huge muscles? Now, this is the reason why he has huge muscles. He's always eating spinach. Take a look at these two pictures now. On the left, you can see your Big Mac. Now, these might be some of your favorites that you can find at McDonald's. Okay, as you can see here, one Big Mac has 2 beef patties inside, and they provide about 549 calories. Within this burger, you have 25 grams of protein, mostly from the meat protein, and 29 grams of fats. Can you imagine how much fats is that? It's really a lot. On the left, we have 2 pieces of grilled fish. Now these 2 pieces of grilled fish have 430 calories. But how much protein is it inside this grilled fish? It's 49 grams of protein. Okay, so you can see that even though it provides less energy, which means there's a higher chance that this meal will not make you fat, okay, it has a much higher content of protein and a lower fat content at 24.1 grams as compared to the burger of 29 grams. As you can see, different kinds of food you eat every day will provide you with a different amount of energy and the different types of energy. Let's move on to fats now. Did you know that fats can be divided into a few categories and not all fat is necessarily bad for you? Now, firstly, everyone should know that fat is also a source of energy. Although they do not provide energy as well as carbohydrates, they do provide you with some energy. Not only that, fat also provides you with essential fatty acids for good health. Insufficient intake might result in dry scaly skin, dry brittle hair, night blindness, and depression. Now, if you are very skinny and you find that you actually don't take much fats in your diet and you have this kind of symptoms, you might want to see a doctor to have his opinion on whether your diet has enough fats or not. The different kinds of fats. Firstly, there is the saturated fat. As you can see from the slide, it is not good fats, especially for an Asian diet or Singaporean diet. Why? Saturated fat increases blood cholesterol. Some of you might have heard of cholesterol from your parents, or some of you might have parents who are suffering from high cholesterol. Now, what is actually cholesterol? Okay, cholesterol is actually fat deposits in your blood vessels that clogs up your blood vessels and prevents your blood from moving well. Can you imagine, like, for example, if there's a lot of dirt in your toilet bowl, it's going to be hard to flush. So if you imagine your blood vessels is the same thing. If your blood vessels are all clogged up, blood will not flow through very well. And they'll get stuck at some point of time and you might suffer really serious health problems. Some examples of saturated fat would be fatty meat, chicken, dark skin, full cream dairy products, coconut milk, butter, and palm oil. The worst kind of fat that you can take into your body is trans fat. Trans fat not only increases your blood cholesterol level, it also stays in your body and you are unable to get rid of it. Some examples of trans fats are deep fried fast food, like your French fries and your chicken nuggets, pastries, especially those kind of pastries that are very flaky, for example, your croissants, and also your potato chips, which is also fried most of the time. There is one kind of fats that is actually pretty good for your body, especially for your blood cholesterol. Unsaturated fat lowers the blood cholesterol level. If you imagine saturated fat as something that increases your blood cholesterol by making your blood thicker, unsaturated fat works the opposite way. It thins your blood, or rather it makes it less thick so your blood can flow better and you are less likely to suffer from cholesterol related problems. Some examples where you can find unsaturated fat would be in fish, soybean, and nuts like your almond nuts, cashew nuts, and walnuts. The next slide is probably the most important slide all of you are waiting for. What to eat when you exercise? We'll split this into mainly three parts, like what you eat before you exercise, during exercise, and after exercise. About 1 hour before exercise, we should be eating a meal with a lot of good, nutritious carbohydrates like wholemeal bread, wholemeal spaghetti, or brown rice. Of course, we are not going to forget about other things like your meat and your vegetables, and of course your water. Okay, but the most important thing before exercises is to eat meals that have a lot of this kind of carbohydrates. During the exercise, no food is required. Have you ever eaten anything while you're having a PE lesson? No, because you do not need to have carbohydrates when you are having your PE or exercising. The most important thing you need when you are exercising is to drink lots and lots of plain water during breaks. This is to stay hydrated and to make sure you do not suffer from illnesses like heat stroke or dehydration. After exercise, a good wholesome meal with lots of nutritious carbohydrates, some protein, and a little fat will be great. Now remember, just a little bit of fat. You do not want to be eating all your fried food. You do not want to be drinking all your overly sweet and fatty drinks. Last but not least, we must always remember that to maintain a healthy lifestyle, we must eat a balanced meal and exercise regularly.